This was my official debut for team. And I was paired against experienced Polish Grandmaster Tomasz Warakowski. I don't think we have played against each other before. I sort of know him. I mean, a lot of Latvian players, they know Polish players. We have pretty good relationship. And I didn't really have any deep prep for this game. But during the opening prep, while I was checking what my opponent plays, I noticed that he has a more or less many options against e4, against d4, but he is quite predictable against knight f3. Yeah, so I tried to predict how the game is going to continue, so I decided, okay, after knight f3, there's a fair chance he's going to go for this system. d5, g3, knight f6, bishop g2, and c6. So those of you who have got my chessable course, King's Indian Attack, you should be feeling like this is Christmas, right? I mean, you know all about this. This is essentially one of the ideas I was discussing in my chessable course, and I was like, oh, bring it on, right? Because I want to check this stuff. I feel very confident in these lines, and I know a lot more than I said in chessable course. So I was very, very excited. I played should castle. Yeah, now prior to the game, when I checked the what he played before, he used to play bishop f5. Bishop f5, d3, e6, and I thought I'm gonna do the same stuff again. b3, bishop b2, everything that is mentioned in the course, and I just love this stuff, really. But unfortunately, he played bishop g4. And I remembered for sure that this was, I think, inaccuracy. Because you are supposed to play c6, bishop g2, bishop g4 immediately. And why is this? Because sometimes the bishop goes to g6, to g7, and the knight goes to e7. That's the trick, right? So there's no need for black to start with knight f6. I then put the bishop on g4. I mean, on a serious note, it probably does not matter. But I mean, these small things, they add up in the end, right? So I played as I'm recommending in the course, h3. If he takes an f3, I take e takes an f3, f4, d3, knight e2, knight f3. Actually, maybe even d4, f4 looks pretty good. Knight e2, knight f3, knight e5, bishop e3. Very easy game. I mean, in my very fresh memory, I still have the game versus Mittens. I mean, you remember this chess.com bot? I mean, this little Mittens completely crushed me while I was once streaming the game against him. I mean, I think it's still available on my YouTube channel. You can check it out. Anyway, so after h3, black played bishop h5. I continued the same spirit, d3, queen e1. The idea is to avoid a pin. e5, e4. Yeah, I was trying to remember what I had written for e6. Pretty sure it was 92. I wasn't really sure. I tried to recall. There were these pawn push ideas at the king side. Couldn't completely recall all of them, but I was very curious to see what's going to happen if he plays e6. Alas, he played e5, e4. Now that I'm threatening to take on d5 and create pressure on the pawn on e5, he had to take on e4, take on e4. And there you go. So, one of the main ideas, dear viewers, if you remember this chapter from the King's Indian Attack course, all I remembered from this particular position was if he plays bishop c5, I have to play knight e2, knight b3. And if he plays bishop e7, I have to play knight e2, knight c4. Right? And then somewhere a4, b4, stuff like this, try to grab space at the queen side, because the queen on e1 very nicely controls this long diagonal, also supports the pawn on b4. He thought here for something like 15 minutes maybe. Took on f3. Okay, I guess I take on f3. So I think I'm up a tempo. Because compare this position. If I would play like this immediately. Here, here, without h3. Not a big deal, but it's a tempi, right? Not really a big deal. Anyway, he took at f3, bishop f3, and now he played h5. And I was thinking, this can't be right. I mean, this can't be right. I mean, I definitely don't recall such a move, such an idea even, by an engine. So if there's no such move by an engine, probably it's not a very good one. And my response is pretty much forced, because I can't allow h4, right? Because if I play something like bishop e3, h4, g4, bishop c5, I mean, look at this. This is a disaster. If black is allowed to control all of those dark squares, nothing good is going to come out of this, right? And my bishop on f3 is a very bad piece. So I don't really have a choice, right? I mean, I have to play h4. And this is a move I want to play anyway, because I'm thinking about activating my bishop on h3. And all I need to do is to make sure I'm not getting blatantly checkmated with g5 something. Yeah, I mean, something like bishop e7, knight g4, g5, etc. But I'm too experienced for this stuff. And I know I've done nothing wrong. And if I have done nothing wrong, then it means there is no direct mate how to brute force checkmate me. Now he played a5, which I felt was really strange, because you don't really play h5 and then the next move you play a5. Why? Because the problem will be the king's safety. You can't really castle short, you can't really castle long. You can't have it both ways. So what black wants to do, he wants to play a4 and secure his outpost on c5. And the most important thing here is that I never want to trade the darks with bishop, not at least immediately, because I really value my two bishop pair. And since a4 bishop c5 is stopping my knight d2, knight b3 idea, I have to play a4. Because now after knight d2, knight b3, or even knight c4, the pawn on a5 is the target. He played knight c5. I guess it's a normal move. I play knight e2, heading for c4, because on c3 it's not doing anything. There's no future. I'm making the bishop on c1 temporarily bad, but the rewards will be enormous after the knight lands on c4. Knight e6, knight c4. And about here, I think about here, my opponent started to suspect that he's in trouble. Because before this knight e6, I mean, once again, maybe it goes without saying that there's no g5, right? I mean, this can't work. g5, h takes, knight g4, this is simply too much. I just play knight c4, king g2, rook h1. This attack is never gonna work. And if he plays something like knight h7, I'm not sure again. I mean, I was thinking about bishop h5, knight g5, bishop g4, king g2, rook h1. The king's in the center, so this attack is destined to fail. So after this knight e6, knight c4, I think my opponent realized that he's in trouble, as I already said. Because after knight e4, I just play bishop d1, I play c3, and then I activate my bishop if I need on b3. And he's just wasting colossal tempi, and the pawn on e5 remains under attack. So that's why here he burned quite a lot of time. He came up with a nice trick. Bishop e4, defending the pawn on a5, provoking me to play c3 so that he can play bishop c5, and my bishop on d2 cannot attack the pawn on a5. Which is a nice idea, but there's one problem. c3 is a good move for me anyway, right? So he sort of stopped the idea of bishop d2, bishop a5, protected the pawn, but he actually provoked me to play a useful move. Also by doing this, he invited me to take the pawn on e5, which I really wanted to check. Because after queen c7, if the knight goes away, you see he's threatening queen g3. I cannot take it, the king g1 is pinned. And I was looking at his bishop f4, knight f4, and I was looking for all kinds of lines like bishop d6, knight e3, bishop f4, e5, I'm winning the game. And I almost convinced myself this might be the way to continue. But my instinct was saying something is not right. For example, also bishop d6 does not work. There's knight f7, bishop d6, e5. I'm up a pawn, I win back the piece. Everything is great. But my gut instinct said something is not right. And finally I found what is wrong with this line. Take on f4 and very strong knight g4. And when I saw this, I lost all the appetite. Because if I take it, it also opens the h file. Black is thinking about the long castle, so what the nerd I'm doing here? Oh, I mean, I cannot do this. So that's why I decided I need to improve my pieces. So I'm gonna start with queen e2. And actually queen e2 does a wonderful job because I keep the pawn on h5 in check, meaning this knight cannot go back to the e7. Let's say knight e7, g6. Because if he does it, I'm simply snatching the pawn on h5. I'm also threading some sort of bishop g5 ideas. If he takes it after h takes on g5, the knight on f6 goes away, I snatch the pawn on h5. I'm also opening up rook d1 idea. Rook d1, attack the queen, and then think about bishop e3. And if he trades the bishops, I'm thinking about knight e6 check, the king is still in the center. And finally, I'm keeping the king in the center because he can't castle the short way because I grabbed the pawn. So queen e2 I thought was a great move. I was very proud of this move. Again, my opponent here spent like many minutes, like 20 minutes or so. He was looking more and more unhappy about the position. He can't play b5. It just creates too many weaknesses. By the way, knight e5 already might be a move. And finally he played g6. Again, I was looking at knight e5, queen c7 and bishop f4. Because now there's a big difference. There's no knight g4, right? Because my queen now stands on e2. Because knight g4, I guess I just twice take on g4, everything is great. But the thing is, after queen c7, there's something else. And after bishop f4, I realized he can play bishop d6 now. Because after knight takes on f7, knight takes on f4, the queen is not on e1, it's on e2. So I can't take the rook on h8. So I take it here, I take it here, and this position just looks so ugly that I didn't even want to check it any closer. So that's why I discarded any business with knight e5. But the question is what to do? What to do next, right? And I really was considering to play rook d1. Rook d1, queen c7, and bishop e3. Because I thought I am winning this check on d6. But if he would play something like a short castle, the pawn on h5 now is defended. If I take it and something like queen e3, I wasn't sure if this is going to be enough. I mean, he probably plays something very solid, or maybe the other knight on d7, and probably I'm better, but how much better exactly I am here? So I was looking for more. Also, I had a feeling that maybe the rook doesn't belong on d1. So what else I can improve in this position? And I look at the bishop on f3 and I realize the bishop on f3 is doing nothing. So it already has accomplished its job to provoke g6 because the pawn on h5 now is successfully defended. So let's just use this moment to play bishop g2. Because now after bishop h3, I'm finding new targets for the bishop. I'm trying to ruin his pawn structure. Also, I'm now threatening to take on e5. Because after knight e5, queen c7, knight d3, you see, let me show it you. Black no longer is threatening to take on g3 because I eliminate the bishop and the queen is under attack. So he has no time for knight g4 and checkmate on h2. So it is a multi-purpose move, and I'm a very strong believer in the logic of chess. And if in the lines that you calculate, you see like your idea has more than one good reason to do it, usually it's a very good move, right? And I could justify why bishop g2 is really looking great, so that's why I went for this. So knight e5 now is a threat. He played knight e7, I play bishop h3 as planned, queen e7, defending against bishop e6. And now, probably the best move of the game. This is when I realized I'm playing a really good game here today. The question is how to continue. Because black is having a terrible position. I mean, I have two bishops, he has a weak king, but I still need to find the next move. This is where I started to think backwards. By the way, this is what a lot of title players do. Maybe grandmasters, I'm not really sure. So when you don't really know what you should do, like what's the next move? Do I play bishop e3? Do I play rook d1? Do I play b3? Do I play rook b1? What's the next move? Because it's not very obvious. I asked myself, what is the opponent gonna do next? So what is he gonna do? I mean, look at the position. What is he gonna do? I mean, he can't play long castle. The pawn on a5 is under attack. He can't play knight b6 to kill the knight. The pawn on e5 is under attack. f6 maybe is a possibility to play knight b6, but the king is in the center. So, it's a safe assumption he's going to play short castle. And when he plays a short castle, you could actually play bishop h6 in one go. So that's why we need one good move to include right now. So, I mean, I have a pin on my king, so I play king g2. I was very, very proud of this move, like typical Karpovian move, right? A prophylactic move, go away from the pin, wait for the opponent to castle short so that I can play bishop h6 in one go. And actually, in all seriousness, I was expecting him to play king f8. King f8, king g7 to control the h6 square, but then again, it maybe doesn't really matter. I mean, it's now spending 2 tempi. So he played short castle, I play bishop h6, he played rook d8. And now we reach the next phase of the game. I'm thinking what to do next. And since I have so beautifully positioned pieces, and he has a weakened king, well, it's gotta be a direct attack, right? So I'm thinking, can I play f4 here? My intuition instantly tells this is not the right moment. I mean, for example, I play f4, he could play king h7, the bishop is slightly trapped, or he could take it, g takes, and then play king h7, or even queen h4, or probably like this. And I have a feeling I'm not entirely ready for this. And one of the most important qualities of a good attack is it needs to be prepared. And I thought I'm not gonna ruin my position by including rook d1, right? Just in case, you know, bring everything I have to the board. Yeah, g4 maybe was a possibility, but not just yet. And the thing is, black is still struggling to find a good next move. So what is it? I mean, if he plays knight b6, he drops the pawn. If he plays king h7, I play bishop c1, and now there's the threat queen e2, queen h6, and f4. Looks very scary from afar. Also, there's the threat of rook d3, rook d1. Let's say king g8, rook d3, rook d1, with all kinds of bishop g5 ideas, and he's simply overloaded, right? So, I mean, you see all of these moves and you don't like it. So what he did, he knew this is an ugly move, but he had to play it. I mean, he played king h7, bishop c1, he played f6. He wants to play knight b6. When I had a look at this position, I wanted to play the next move instantly. I mean, instantly, without any calculation whatsoever. But I'm too well educated. So I spent here good 10 minutes, maybe 5-10 minutes, and then I played f4. I mean, I think that this move literally asks to be played. right? F4, you want to open up the king side, you're ready for the attack. Because if you're gonna slow down at the critical moment, you might miss your opportunity, right? Actually, there was also G4 here. I didn't really pay any attention to this move, but G4, Queen G4, H5 also made perfect sense to make it work. I mean, anyway, my idea is to open up the king side. I played F4, and I was thinking if he's gonna play something like B5, I wanted to play F5. Now the point is G takes, Queen H5, Bishop F5 looks incredibly strong. I take it, and I thought I'm gonna take on E6, Knight B6, and somehow I'm gonna win this because this pawn is very strong. So maybe even G4, eliminate the pawn, play H5, and the knight on B6, bishop on C5 there. Bystanders, and my pawn on E6 is very, very strong. So this didn't happen. He took on F4, and this is when I realized, oh my goodness, I have blundered. I have blundered. After G takes on F4, he can play F5. I was like, oh my goodness. Because if I take on F5, there's knight F4. I'm losing the queen. So I was like, oh my goodness, I blundered. But then I realized actually it's still okay. Because I can just play something like Queen F3. And the threat of E takes on F5 remains, and I'm opening up position, still should be okay. I guess after Knight G7, E takes, G takes, Black is somehow holding. Although engine says that there's a kill. Take, Queen H5, here, and F5. Queen G7, sorry. Queen G7 and Bishop G5. I mean, not very obvious to me. I mean, that this position should be winning. I'm down a piece, my king is exposed, and engine says it's something like +2 for white. Okay, I mean, I didn't see this. I thought I'm gonna probably do something here. Something like this, but actually engine already said this is strictly the only choice for white to keep the winning position. E takes and Bishop F5. So would have been very difficult for me to continue to play the perfect game. He didn't play this, luckily for me. He played Knight G7, trying to bring more pieces to the defense. And I felt that this is the right moment to start a kingside attack. So F5. I thought G5 makes no sense here. I mean, H takes, F takes, E5. There's no way that this is not winning. So I did not calculate this too much. I was thinking there's going to be something like F6 or takes, F6, Knight F6, Rook F6, stuff like this. And I felt that this king is too weak and there should be something, right? So actually, maybe some of you are wondering why, because it feels that my king on G2 also was weak, but somehow still I have a feeling that the black king is much more vulnerable than the white king, because nobody's attacking the white king, but the black king is under, I mean, pretty much every white's piece under a potential attack. So I didn't really calculate this. I thought E5, I'm going to figure it out, because visually it looks perfect. He played Knight F8, and again, I think that the next move basically plays itself. I have to play E5, rip apart the position. He can't ever take on E5, I'm gonna play F6 and win a piece. So he played the final chance, he played B5. And obviously I had a feeling that this is complete desperation, but it's understandable, because his position is on the verge to be losing. And I really wanted to sacrifice a piece here. I was thinking taking on G6, Knight G6, and something like Rook F6. I mean, it just somehow clicked, right? I get a feeling this should be a win. And I was looking at, let's say, takes, B takes on C4, and some sort of a Queen C2, Queen E8. And I could not believe that this position could not be winning. Actually, engine says there's a direct Bishop F5. Bishop F5, Knight F5, Queen H5, and black is annihilated. King G8, Rook G6, Knight G7, Bishop H6. So very strong attack. But anyway, I was looking at all of this and I realized, why should I actually do this? Because I'm teaching to my own students the simple rule: never do funny business in great position. So I'm thinking about funny business. I'm thinking about crazy tactics where I don't need it. So I took on d8. And now the point is, after rook d8, he missed his final opportunity because after knight a5, his queenside completely falls apart. He should have played queen d8. And after queen d8, I thought I'm probably very close to winning after e takes on f6. If he plays queen f6, I play bishop g5, I have a beautiful piece activity. This should be like, again, knight e5 is incoming, incredibly strong, so probably completely crushing. But then I saw from afar he can give me a check. And if I play queen f3, he takes on c4. And maybe this position actually is not even winning anymore, because he's about to trade queens, and I have not won anything at all. So I was a bit confused what I'm gonna do, and I thought maybe I can play rook d1 to stop queen d5 from happening. And now the big point was that after queen e7, I suddenly have f takes on g6, and the point is after knight g6 there's rook d7, I'm pinning the 7th rank. But as my opponent after the game correctly said, black can actually play queen e8. And now things are not so clear, right? So I would have to play something like knight e6, queen e5, trade the queens and go for some domination like position with two bishops, very nice knight in the center, very active d-file. Technically I'm down a pawn, but I mean, come on, it doesn't even feel. But it's not winning, it's like a position with large advantage. Yeah, and finally after queen d8, engine says, I checked this after the game, first you have to include a takes on b5, c takes on b5, and now take on f6. And now the biggest difference is after queen d5 check, queen f3, the queen on d5 is no longer protected, so you might take on f3. What was it? King of... Oh wait, where's the win actually? Wait a second, where was the win? There was a win here, just a second. I remember I was checking with the computer. Queen d8, a takes on b5. Ah, wait, it's not even e takes on f6. I didn't check it any closer. Yeah, engine says 92. Just continue the attack. Okay, I didn't check this. Okay, I thought it's still e takes on f6. Funny. And the attack is killing apparently. Okay, fine. But I mean, the game finished with rook d8, knight a5. I grabbed another pawn. He can never bother this pawn, this knight on a5, because I can always play b4. So I think he blundered here a couple of moves. Knight c6, queen e8, a takes on b5. It's very easy. Actually, I thought here he's gonna play queen b7, pitting the knight and the king. A takes on b5, rook takes on e5, but I mean, something like queen d3 should be very close to crushing position. My king is feeling very safe, there's no direct threats. So the game finished in a couple of moves. I took all of these 3 pawns, and now I don't need to fall for the last trap. This would be really ridiculous. Yeah, so I can't do that. And that's why I just play queen f3. That's it. Attack the rook, try the bishop f5. Queen g6 is simply king h1. The rook is under attack. Bishop takes on f5 is a big threat. I'm about to trade queens with many extra pawns in the bag. And if he sacrifices the exchange, I just take on f5 and collect everything. Black resign. So it was a nice game. I had a very good mood after the game, obviously. I mean, after playing a quiet, ready game, after my course in the King's Inn and attack, and win a very good opponent in 31 moves, it felt really good. But you know what was really spectacular? After the game, I checked what chess.com engine says. And do you know what it says? Just a second, let me see if it's gonna agree right now. Oh wait, for some reason it changed. That's weird. Because initially when I uploaded the game, you know what it said? The accuracy, the game I played was 99.1%. And I uploaded the game on ChessBase. I checked ChessBase, I ran this centi-pawn loss. And ChessBase said, how many centi-pawns loss was it? 4 or 5 centi-pawns loss. So nearly a perfect game. Yeah, this happens so rarely, right? So according to Engine, the only inaccuracy I did, all of this was okay. H4, I think it's perfect. This is perfect. This is perfect. This is perfect. This is perfect. The only inaccuracy Engine said was here, which is very human, right? And I think the top choice that Engine was giving here was Rook A2. It's completely cuckoo, yeah. What's Rook what and Rook A2, right? So if I would play Rook A2 here, probably I think my opponent could definitely accuse me of cheating, yeah. So yeah, I mean I think there was Rook A2 either here or somewhere before. Yeah, what's the point of Rook A2? Yeah. Anyway, yeah, I don't remember when was the last time I played a 99% accuracy, 99 point something actually. So I had a feeling with 4 or 5 centi-pawns lost, it should be actually something like 99.6, something like that. Very, very high level game. And starting from this was the top choice of Stockfish. Top choice of Stockfish. Every single move. I mean here, top choice, top choice, top choice, top choice, top choice, top choice. Okay, maybe not so many moves really, but it felt good, you know? That I can play these sharp positions and still play some of the best moves.